Coming up on today's show, we're talking about the latest with Shedeur Sanders and defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz. Will they be a big part of this football team next year? I've got updates from Todd Monken himself in his introductory press conference and a report from an NFL insider. Welcome into the Browns Report, everybody. I am your host, Joey O'Donoghue. We're going to start with Shedeur Sanders, but real quick before we dive in, I want to make sure you guys know about this awesome deal we have coming up before Valentine's Day, because this is going to be one of your last chances to cash in at chatsports.com/BrownsVDay. I think it's the perfect Valentine's gift to get your significant other to rep the dog pound with you. Perhaps she married into this. Wasn't always a Cleveland Browns fan. Wasn't born into it, but married into it. So if your significant other did marry into this fandom and you want to be able to have a fun gift that everybody in the family loves, I think married into this t-shirts, comfortable sweatshirts that we've got for you at chatsports.com/BrownsVDay is the perfect gift to get. So go on over. Let me know in the comment section if you get one. Appreciate you guys. Want to make sure you have this option before Valentine's Day is here. It is coming up. All right, we're going to start with Andrew Berry's comments on the offense, and this may be intriguing to some. On the offensive side of the ball, we looked and we felt like we had a number of young pillar cornerstone pieces, but we envision a world where that side of the ball is going to have pretty significant turnover over the next several months. So they're going to change a lot about this offensive roster, but they do think that they have some young talent that's here for years to come. I'll tell you, the O-line's definitely going to have the most turnover out of every aspect of this offense. I mean, the unit was dreadful. They're old. They're free agents. You know, I would think he's talking about that in particular, as well as coaches and schemes on that staff. But what about the quarterback position? Where is Cleveland leaning in that sense? Todd Monken, of course, was asked this question. It was the first question he was asked in his press conference. He said he is excited about Shedeur and all of the quarterbacks in the room. The decision is to be determined. They're not sold yet. Obviously, he just got here on who's going to be the starting quarterback. Monken followed that up and said the number one trait he looks for in a quarterback, personality-wise, is someone who has that it factor, someone that will lead the team, that players rally around, and that they want to follow, right? A quarterback needs to be a leader. Of our quarterbacks, that sounds like Shedeur Sanders to me. It factor? Come on. You're screaming his name, quite frankly. A guy that someone in the locker room is going to rally around. You know, evidently that wasn't Dillon Gabriel. Might be hard for guys to do that with Deshaun Watson as well going forward. You know, also want to note that Andrew Berry said they're going to explore external options here. You know, everything is on the table quarterback-wise. They're going to do a deep dive into that. You know, they're an analytical front office, so they're not sold on anyone yet. But Monken, seems like Shedeur may be the style of quarterback that he does like. And I promise you this, Browns fans, Dillon Gabriel is not going to be in this mix. People bring him up here and there. Todd Monken has been very vocal throughout his career that he wants a quarterback who can scramble. And he literally said at one point, not a quarterback that isn't 5 foot, right? And that's just the thing with Dillon Gabriel. You know, height is a real factor for quarterbacks in this league. We can't ignore that. And he's a one-dimensional quarterback because of that limitation. You know, if you're going to succeed as a shorter quarterback, you have to excel and be perfect in other areas of being a quarterback. Like, you have to be super mobile, like Kyler Murray or Russell Wilson, for example. But Dillon Gabriel is not that. Gabriel is a pure pocket passer who can't pass. Inconsistent accuracy, bad arm strength, and stays in the pocket. It's not going to work. It's very difficult to be successful. You need all the perfect pieces around him. He's not a pure pinpoint accurate passer, but he has to be in order to succeed with the lack of mobility and lack of physical gifts, quite frankly. So overall, it was a bad third-round pick by Andrew Berry and the crew. Maybe Gabriel is the future backup quarterback for the Cleveland Browns just because he's still on a rookie deal. Otherwise, he's straight up getting traded for anyone who will buy or cut from this roster. I don't think he'll be in this mix. So that means with the guys that's left, it's a battle between Shedeur Sanders and reviving Deshaun Watson's career. What Todd Monken is going to do is pick a quarterback, build a plan for that QB specifically. So we'll have the training camp battle. Perhaps another guy comes into this mix in free agency or even the draft. And Monken, what he excels at, as I've told you guys, building plans, adapting to different systems. He will maximize the strength of your players. He even said this in his press conference, okay, that he builds for the players. His game plan is just go score with who you have. I liked a lot of his answers. I'll tell you that for sure. I'm going to bring up Deshaun Watson being a real possibility to be the Browns quarterback next year. The fact of the matter is, Watson was never once benched. He's never been healthy and didn't start for the Cleveland Browns. So, as scary as it may sound, there's a real chance Watson is in this mix, but who knows? Maybe Monken's the guy that could bring the most out of him, get him back to his Pro Bowl days. But the most likely case, I would tell you right now, here at this point in time, what is this, February 3rd here, mid-afternoon, I think Shedeur Sanders is the most likely quarterback to win this job and be the starter. And that's what it's going to come down to. You have to win the job, okay? There's going to be a battle in training camp. It's not given to anybody right now, especially based on last year. And every quarterback has had their fair share of woes with the Cleveland Browns the past couple years. I think Shedeur showed the most flashes, the most upside, and he's young and on a rookie deal. I mean, that's the dream scenario for the Cleveland Browns, is that your fifth-round rookie quarterback becomes your guy, right? So they're going to explore that. He's in this mix, but everything is on the table right now as they start to figure out this staff. And I do think it's likely he can win this job. Shedeur said himself today that he needs to prove it, and it's expected that he doesn't have the job right now. Those were his words today. So expect a lot of hard work this offseason, a lot of updates coming your way from me and from the Browns staff as we get ready. You tell me in the comments section, though, if you had to pick the starting quarterback for next year, give me the initials in that comment section. If you want Shedeur Sanders, type SS. If you're picking Dylan Gabriel, type DG. And if you want the return of Deshaun Watson, I'll be shocked if we get a bunch of DWs, but you never know. Type DW in the comment section. Let me know, Browns fans, where your head's at here in starting quarterback territory. Also, do not miss out because we're going live for the Pro Bowl tonight. Yes, the Pro Bowl flag football game, because Shedeur Sanders is going to play quarterback in that game. Well, as is Joe Flacco, another Browns quarterback of the year at one point. But we're going to do a Shedeur watch party. So we'll be live on the channel. Don't miss out. Going to be a ton of fun. It'll be just like a regular season watch party that we do, guys. So if you want to pull up to that, we'll be partying. Me and producer JD over here. We're going to have a lot of fun, do some deals. So tune into our Shedeur Pro Bowl watch party tonight. We'll also cheer on Denzel Ward. I don't think Myles Garrett is going to play, but obviously he was on the roster. Next, it's the Jim Schwartz updates for you guys. So, Monken said he has, in fact, talked to Jim Schwartz. They have had conversations, and then he had a couple other quotes about Jim here in his press conference. So, this one I think is the most notable update we got from Todd Monken. He said, there's a big reason why I took this job, the defensive players. I didn't take this job because of Jim Schwartz. I have a lot of respect for Jim Schwartz, as I would hope he has for me. When I was preparing for the Cleveland Browns, I wasn't trying to chip Jim Schwartz. I was trying to chip Myles Garrett. And it's been a bleep to go against this defense. I like that Monken answered the question that way. You know, the first time he was asked about Schwartz, he said, I don't think it's appropriate to comment on him right now. You know, he didn't want to say too much, but obviously those reporters and that Cleveland media presses you a little bit. They kept poking some Jim Schwartz questions, and he says, I wasn't going to say this, but I didn't take the job because of Schwartz. I took it because of the defensive players that we got. And I think he's got a point to be made here. You know, Cleveland's defense, Jim Schwartz brings it to another level, and his scheme, his development of young players is phenomenal. Myles Garrett will be successful with any DC he has, though, as will Denzel Ward. And Monken said they're going to keep the defensive system the exact same. They're not going to really touch too much of that side of the ball. A lot of the same coaches will be on that staff. They're kind of in limbo with Jim Schwartz right now. He's going to be the guy on that staff. But they're going to keep the system and the scheme that has worked so well and let the players do what they do and do what they've been taught. So Monken really is just focusing on the offense here. Going to try to keep that defense intact according to him. Now, why haven't we heard anything from Jim Schwartz, his camp, his team, right? You got the reports right when the hire happened that he cleaned out his office, that Jim was pissed off. One reporter said he basically told coaches of the Browns that he's leaving and go screw themselves. Like, all this came out. Nothing since then from Schwartz's camp or reports on how he's feeling. But Albert Breer, NFL insider, just gave us this According to Albert Breer, Jim Schwartz mentioned Vegas as a potential landing spot for the Browns DC if he does get out of his deal. Philly would be, or at least was, another if Vic Fangio were to retire. Cleveland's been firm on holding him to his contract. So Cleveland wants to hold him onto this deal, right? That's key here. He has to get out of a contract to be able to leave. And I don't know why you'd want to go to the Raiders. The one I would be worried about here is Philadelphia. Now, new reports show that Fangio is unlikely to retire. Obviously, Jim's got Schwartz. Schwartz has ties to the Eagles. Won a Super Bowl with Philadelphia when he was their defensive coordinator. I think that'd be a reunion he would want. But seems like Vic Fangio is going to stay and not actually retire. So that means it's us or Las Vegas, two of the worst teams in the league last year. Why would you get rid of everything you have here in Cleveland, all the defensive talent, all the guys you have relationships with, a defense that's built around you, Jim, to go to Las Vegas? With who do they have? So Schwartz, as he's weighing his options, kind of going to be down to the Browns and Raiders if that Eagles job doesn't open up. Or retirement. Otherwise, he's literally stepping away from the game, which would really be a shame if he went out like that, didn't get the head coach job, so you just retire. I think as he mulls this over, he'll see it's best to just run this back for one more year, Jim. One more. Can you give me one? With Monken as the head coach and an offense hopefully being revamped. We do know he was very upset, though. And as Todd Monken said, quite frankly, this is about the defensive players that we have. You know, he's not here. The whole head coach interview process was not centered around Jim Schwartz. Otherwise, he would be the head coach. So I like that Monken's making that point, right? Whether he's here or not, I'm going to do what I want to do. We're going to fix this offense. Defense is going to be mostly intact the same way. And that's the fact of the matter. Browns team's going to move on whether or not Jim Schwartz is here. And I think it could be special if he did come back. But after all this, we'll see if that's something that he elects to do. But I want you to get in the comment section and predict it for me. Will Jim Schwartz be back next season? Type Y for yes. Type N for no. Call it right now. Who going to predict this thing? Will Jim Schwartz be back with the Cleveland Browns? Y for yes, N for no in the comment section. My final takeaway on the press conference from Todd Monken is that he's really excited about this opportunity. You know, he's always wanted to be a head coach. In fact, Monken got emotional, started tearing up at the very start of the press conference. He's a no-nonsense guy. He'll be honest with you. He'll be straightforward with you, and he succeeded in so many different offensive systems. He answered questions well. You know, this Cleveland media is not for everybody. A lot of coaches, even Stefanski, I hated listening to his press conferences, but he had some questions that, you probably don't want to deal with. And so they're going to ask you those questions, and I think he answered them, handled them well, and actually gave some answers. So he's going to be focused on fixing that offense, and I really liked what I heard from Todd Monken. I'm all in on the Monk, baby. Let's get hyped up. I'm your host, Joey O'Donohue. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's show. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on Browns updates going forward, because we're going to have plenty of them all off season long. Also, lots of NFL draft content, free agency content, quarterback battle. I mean, all of it. We got you covered. Hit that sub button, and I'll see you soon.